Hi, welcome to the Rosie Rose Show. This is Rose Kun, and today my special guest is Frank Villa. And Frank Villa is a heroin survivor and a addiction specialist, a certified financial service, an artist, a creative, and a speaker. Hi, Frank. How are you today?
I am well, Rosie. Thank you. Thank you. That was a beautiful edification. Thank you for blowing me up that way.
Yeah. So let us hear more about you, Frank.
Sure. Like you said, I think the main thing I like to touch on is that addiction specialist. So, I'm 46 years old. I was born in Mexico. I was raised in Tucson, Arizona, and I was a opiate and heroin addict for over 17 years. I'm also diagnosed with PTSD and bipolar, and I don't take any pharmaceutical meds. I chose the holistic route, um, not because I'm against medication. It didn't serve me. My physiology rejected it, and I just saw alternative methods, and by the grace of God, I've been blessed by all these different healing modalities that once I applied them, they totally transformed my life. And I don't mean it lightly. It's been a very long, arduous journey. It's been 7 years the last time I put a needle in my arm, and shot up heroin. And in that process, yeah, I pretty much lost everything in the addiction world. My father was he was affiliated with cartels and stuff like that. So my upbringing was very violent. It was all in the drug world, and this is what really led to really me getting into addictions, and that lifestyle that we become so comfortable with, because just because we're born into it, we think that we have to be that. and,
Mhm.
and that's really what happened to me. I thought I had to be that, and part of that process, like I said, I lost everything. And I think the real beginning to this darkness happened. My brother shot himself playing Russian roulette when I was 21. He was 20 years old, and that really shattered my heart into a million pieces. Um and, and it really opened up the door to the stored trauma I had from my childhood. Not even I didn't even realize on how it was affecting me. And I really didn't try rehab until I was 40 years old. I
Mm.
had no idea about mental health. I had no idea about recovery, any of this. Like I said, I didn't start my journey until I was 40 years old. And my rock bottom, man, my 2-year-old son was pretending to shoot up with pencils and pens.
Oh,
Me and his mom were both addicts, and that was my rock bottom. When I saw him pretending to shoot up, I ended up calling a family member, and I told him to come pick up my son and to call Child Protective Services because we were unfit parents.
oh,
And
wow.
yeah, that was a very hard decision to make, and to really realize um how far I had really gone, not even realizing the damage that I was causing, not just to myself, but to my surroundings and my family. Here was my 2-year-old son thinking that it was okay to shoot up, right?
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I learned about trauma, is that we basically mimic our surroundings as we grow up. I watched my father use drugs. I watched him commit domestic violence, and live a lifestyle that unfortunately it still plagues our society to this day, and it's taking a lot of our youth, as we speak. As we speak now, there's people ODing and dying because of this drug lifestyle, and really us trying to fill a void, this pain that we have. And at least for me, that I try to fill it with drugs, and a lifestyle.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
So you grew up seeing your dad in a cartel and then seeing your brother play Russian roulette and killing himself. And
Yes.
so you grew up with all this trauma that's been passed down to you. And then when did you became an addict or you start using drugs when 17 years ago? Is it after you seen your brother get well, when not seen your brother? Is it after your brother was um passed away when you
Um, I think, well, actually, I started consuming drugs before that.
mm-hmm,
But it wasn't as hardcore, right? We start off lightly, like a weekend thing and all that stuff, and so, but I was already consuming drugs, and we had just gotten back. Me and my brother had just gotten back. We ended up moving for a year with my dad to Mexico, and we experienced a whole year of that cartel lifestyle. We literally moved over there and participated and did everything that has to go with that lifestyle. And as soon as we got back, 3 months later is when my brother shot himself.
mm,
Um,
sorry about
but
that.
it's Yeah, yo, thank you. Um, but now it's weird. It's funny how sometimes the worst things that can happen to us actually is the greatest awakening.
Yes.
Um, so and it wasn't until hindsight, but so here it is, my brother's funeral, and I had been with my ex-wife. We had been dating for like 5 years off and on, and I never got her pregnant, and we weren't together at the time. But when my brother passed away, she came to visit, and I ended up we ended up sleeping together that night, and I ended up getting her pregnant. And like right after my brother passed away, like 3 months later, she called me and told me like I'm pregnant, and it was funny. Like something inside me told me like, okay, you're gonna drop everything, and you're gonna move, and you're gonna try to be a father. It's like I stopped drug dealing. I and this whole time I was drug dealing with my father, and
And how old were you that time?
I was 21.
Oh, 21.
Yeah, I was 21. So I was still, very heartbroken about what had happened to my brother. But here was like God, or an angel as a messenger, or my brother, like, here's a gift, so you don't throw your life away. I was very distraught when that happened. I literally wrote a letter to the devil and to God, and I cursed them both when my brother died. And I told them, whoever wants my soul, come and get it.
Oh,
I want to know what the truth is. And man, let me just tell you, be careful what you ask for, because it happened. I mean, in the sense, like I said, I got blessed in the drug dealing world, and I experienced the highs of it. Like I know what it's like to have an abundance of cash money and all that stuff. I've seen all that type of stuff. But like I said, be careful what you ask for. And as soon as I got attached to that, everything got taken away. I
wow.
mean, everything. My drug connects passed away. Um, and mind you, this whole time that I was making drug dealer money, I was getting addicted to the oxycodones.
Mm.
But at that time, I could afford it, so I was paying top dollar for it, and I didn't care because I had the money. And little did I know how addictive this was gonna be. And like I said, all my connects died and everything, and everything dried up. So now it was time to really hit rock bottom and experience the lows of the low. And really, I think this is where God really stepped in, and it was like, now in hindsight, like I said, I really think true love is learning how to let go, and I mean let go of everything. Like I said, in the process, I lost everything. I don't even have pictures of my children. I've lost everything, and but like I said, that had to happen in a sense, where I could start learning to value life and not material goods per se.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when was the point where you like no more, like you need to change? When was your, like you said, your rock bottom is, was that when you seen your brother, when your brother passed away, or when was the the moment?
No, so the real moment came when like I said, once my I saw my son
Okay.
pretending to shoot up.
Yeah.
I decided that I was no longer going to be, me and his mom were both addicts. So I decided to go my own way and try to figure out a way to get clean. And I knew that the only way I was going to be able to do that was to be away from her, because we were just codependent.
Yeah.
We would, when one of us would want to get clean, the other one would pull the other one down. So it was just a big mess. And when I decided to do that, um, in my mind, I said, well, I'm going to move to Mexico and go move to with my father. And because that town that we're from in Mexico, they don't do heroin.
Yeah.
It's a very small like cattle ranch and up in the mountains, and so they don't do heroin. So in my mind, I thought I'd be okay, but little did I know that my biggest addiction was the needle. I
Mm,
got addicted to actually the syringe, is because when you shoot up any type of drug, the high is instant. As soon as you plunge it, I mean, you get an instant high. So you get addicted to that rush. And I was in Mexico, and I had detox from heroin. I was doing okay, but I still have those addictive tendencies. And once an addict doesn't have their drug of choice, they go to the next thing. And
mm.
what was big in that town was meth. So my grandmother was diabetic, and she asked me to fill up her insulin, and that's where I found the needles. And my in my addict mind, I took some needles because I knew there was meth, and at that time I was abusing, they're called benzos, so like downers, any Valiums, that type of stuff.
Hmm.
So I was popping pills and shooting up meth at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So what happened is I went on a meth bender, and I ended up having a meth induced psychosis. I literally lost my mind. I started seeing entities. It is just so crazy, Rose. I literally lost my mind. I was chasing people with machetes around town,
Oh,
and like, yeah, it was getting very, very scary, to the point to where I could sense like that if I didn't get out of there, they were either gonna kill me or they were gonna give me some messed up dope so I could OD or something like that.
yeah.
Um, and one day I just woke up. Like I said, I had like a spiritual awakening, and it had to do with the meth. But anyways, I all of a sudden I woke up one day, and I realized that my life had a purpose, that I knew that everything had to happen for a reason. So my childhood, Rose, was very traumatic. My father used to kick my mom in the stomach when she was pregnant. By the
Mm,
time I was 4, I had open heart surgery. By the time I was 7, I was getting sexually molested. By the time I was 16, we were having drive-bys at our house. And by the time, like I said, I was 20 and 21, we're doing cartel stuff with my father in Mexico. And by the time I came back, I was after my brother shot himself, I literally I had to clean his brains up. I cleaned up his brains off the floor.
oh,
Uh,
so
um,
you you weren't there, but you had to go and clean up the aftermath.
yeah, 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 yeah. It was um it was a very, very traumatic experience. Like I said, it made me very cold, and I didn't even know how to cope. Um, so here I am, gonna be a father. I moved from Tucson. I moved to Yuma, Arizona. I don't know if you know where that's at. It's right on the border with California and Arizona.
Okay, yeah.
And so I ended up moving there to raise my daughter. And Her grandfather got me a good job at a military base, man, with all the benefits. Man, I was doing good at 23. I was doing good financially. I had a good job, but spiritually, I was broken.
Mm,
Mentally, I was broken. I had the PTSD and the bipolar, but I didn't know anything about mental health. Even at that point, I didn't even know.
yeah.
Finally, my ex wife talked me into seeking therapy or something like that. And when I did go, I didn't even have the ability to speak. I had to write my story on what was troubling me or whatever.
Yeah.
And the first thing the therapist said was like, after he read my story, it was like, wow, it's a miracle you haven't killed yourself yet.
Wow.
And it was just so much pain. Like I said, I didn't know how to cope. I didn't trust it. They gave me some prescription meds, and mind you, I had this raging addiction that I didn't even know that I had. I thought everything was cool, you know. And I stopped going to therapy. I stopped doing all this stuff. But what I did start doing, I started drinking. I
Oh,
started
so
I Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
So it was from, so you were struggling the whole time and then you got better and got a good job and was doing good. And then you went to coping into drinking alcohol next.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
because I still didn't know how to heal about my brother's death. I didn't even know how to cope with my past traumas. I didn't even know what trauma was. So I didn't even know I had these underlying issues that were causing me to sabotage my life, you know? It was like this pattern of pain. Like I would do good and then all of a sudden I would just crash.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why, you know? So normally, um, we would just start drinking to take care of the depression, to take care of this or whatever. Well, anyways, long story short, I ended up cheating on my ex-wife, and I held the secret for like 3 years, and she kind of had suspicions, and one day she questioned me, but it was so funny. It was like I was tired of lying. I was tired of holding on
Yes.
to
That's
this
heavy.
story that I had inside. Yes. And when I finally told her the truth, it was almost like I got set free, but at the same time, I had to pay the consequences of my actions, you know. And I ended up getting a divorce, and like I said, I ended up. It's funny how trauma rears its little head when we're in difficult situations, and we go back to trained behavior when those difficult situations pop up. And that's what I did. I mimicked my father, and I ran. Instead
Yeah.
of staying there and trying to deal with the situation, instead
Mhm.
of trying to mend and fix this relationship, or be there for my daughter, no, I picked up my things and I ran.
Yeah.
And,
And so when did your healing journey begin? When did that start?
oh wow. So that began in 2014, around that time. Um, I was heavily addicted in heroin. I was selling heroin, and my best friend's dad owns a rehab in Mexico, and my mom called me one day and she goes, "Look, I know you're messing up." She goes, "Why don't you go to so and so's rehab? Go to Mingo's rehab." And I was like, "If we're gonna go, we gotta go now."
Yeah.
I said, because if I change my mind, I'm never gonna go. So she came and picked me up, and it was from here, from Tucson. It's probably like 4 or 5 hour drive.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I went to Mexico. That was my first try at rehab. I only lasted like 2.5 months, and as soon as I got out, like a week later, I ended up relapsing again because I was still with my son's mom, and as soon as I got out, as soon as we came up on money, we talked ourselves into relapsing.
Mm.
So, like I said, so that was a 3 year journey of relapsing and trying to get off again, and so so I ended up, like I said, relapsing again. And this time, this is when I ended up leaving my son's mom, and But when I left her, before I left her, we um we ended up trying to get well together. So I told her, like, if you go to rehab, I'll go too.
Yeah.
And I got her to go check herself in, but I was only doing it for her. Like, you'll get yourself clean, you'll be good. I'll be there with you, whatever. And I did. I checked myself into rehab with her here in the United States, and that's when the real journey began. It was a mindfulness based rehab. So that's where I
Mindfulness
learned
based.
about, yeah, I learned about meditation, I learned about neuroplasticity, I learned about the nervous system, I learned about dual diagnosis. This is when I really started learning about mental health and drug addiction. And that's when I received my diagnoses and all this stuff. And this is where I really started doing treatment. And this was 2015, 2017. And my old patterns kicked in rehab. It was a co-ed rehab, and I ended up having sex with the female client. But when I was in there with her, she pulled out some heroin, and
Mm.
that's what really got me to relapse. Yeah, and I ended up losing custody of my son. Child Protective Services was bringing my son to rehab, but like I said, I had these underlying issues. I always thought that it was just the drugs,
Yeah.
that if I stopped using, that everything would be okay. No, and that's when the real work began, and my mental health issues, and all these underlying issues that affect us men, not necessarily just mental health, but us men, like how we get addicted to sex and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And as soon as we lose one thing and we go to the next thing to fill the void.
Mm.
And that's what really, I ended up getting kicked out of rehab. Like I said, I've never even finished the program, Rose. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
I know
what was the void that you've been avoiding?
it was that childhood trauma, my inner child.
Your inner
It was
child.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like I said, I got kicked out of rehab. And but in rehab, I got introduced into art, right? So I got
Hmm.
introduced to art, and but I never knew that it was going to be a big thing for me. But um, one day when I ended up getting kicked out of rehab because I relapsed or whatever, but I found love with everything that I learned in rehab, and once I hit the streets on my own, I started applying what I learned little by little. I started doing I started surrounding myself with motivational people, and I did that through YouTube. And then I went to a local mental health clinic here. And the beauty about like local mental health clinics, and when you have access and state insurance, is they provide free classes on mental health.
Oh,
And,
wow. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
I started taking every class they had. I would show up there from the time they opened until they closed. I sat there like a student. And mind you, like most people that go there, they're forced to take these classes. So it's
Hmm.
like probation or whatever's making you go. And I wasn't. I was taking it as a job. That was my job,
Yeah.
to figure it out. But anyways, they cycled through their curriculum, so I got bored. I started
Hmm.
getting bored, and I was like, now what? And some random lady in the lobby goes, and Rose, any other person in this world would probably wouldn't even have paid attention to her. She smelled like urine. She was homeless. She was in a wheelchair. Um, and we just started talking out of nowhere. And I showed her some of my art, and she goes, "Oh my God, you should go check out this art therapy place." She told me, "You really need to go there." She goes, "I know I don't know you from anywhere, but you need to go there." And by this time, I already had started learning on how to follow the signs. Like little by little, I truly believe that universe is constantly sending us signs where we belong and where we could heal and where we could be best of service.
Yes.
Eh,
Yes. I agree too.
uh, uh, so I find this art therapy place, and that's where my true healing began. And what
Mm.
I learned was I needed to find a safe space for my inner child could feel safe enough to be that child. My childhood was so traumatic and so scary that I never had a childhood. I never got to experience it.
Yeah.
So the one that was rebelling, the one that was always scared, was my inner child. So basically, I had to become that father figure I never had. I had to become that mother figure that never really showed me love, because she had 5 kids to raise and she had a husband that was constantly beating her, right? So it was hard for her to raise 5 kids on her own and to be loving. You know what I mean? What kind of mother is expected if you're constantly beating her, and we expect him to raise her children good? You know what I mean? And that wasn't the case, you know. But it taught me compassion, and it also taught me that I had to create that safe space for my inner child, um to get to be that child. And I think I did about 3 or 4 years of art therapy, and little by little I started getting a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I found Evan Carmichael. I found his belief channel, and that really just it just catapulted me to believe. And not only that, that's how I really started healing, because of all the different people that he brought in onto his channel.
Yeah.
That little by little I started, like, just going down different rabbit holes, and then applying to everything that they were speaking, and the miracles just started happening, Rose. I mean, like, miracle after miracle. um I'm gonna show you the miracle that I'm at right now.
All right.
I can't really show you, but so now I work at a rehab, at a men's residential treatment, and it's actually the rehab that started it all for me. Um, Over 7, 8 years ago, I was here as a client, as somebody that needed help, and now universe brought me back so I could share my story with these men. And a lot of them they come from prison. A lot of them are super broken. So it's funny how, like I said, God in the universe brings us back to where we can best be of service. Never did I dream that I would be here working at the place that started it all for me. And it all happened synchronistically. I met the director randomly at a different job site, and they offered me an interview, and here I am, 4 months later, creating impact. Just
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing. It's like a full circle. How you just say it just comes around, and this is where you're supposed to be in service. And to go back is me and Frank. We both met at Movement Maker on Evans Carmichael community space. So that's where me and Frank met. And for me too is like that voice, right? When you are clear and you ask questions of like, for me was what why am I here? Like, why am I different? Right? Driving around. And one day that voice came to me, was like, forgive the man that killed your father, And I was like, what? So that never occurred to me that, I never thought about this man that killed my father, but it's just that voice, that little hint. But that voice, there was like some energy, some force, some power that fed into me. I don't know what it is, but that question and that voice, that message that came to me lit a fire within me. And
Mm.
and for me was to follow that path, to follow the curiosity, right? So that curiosity led to me trying to find him in prison, and found him, like, his CDC. And I was like, okay, here's here's the prison that he's at. And I was like, and I wrote him a letter. But before writing the letter, it was me, like you said, healing that inner child, like going back and healing that little girl. For me, it was that 7-year-old girl that lost her father, that waited for him to come home because he said he was going to teach her how to ride a bike. And that day never came. And for me, growing up, like, we didn't know about, I didn't know I had trauma. I thought it was just normal, So growing up until later, when like right before the Evan Carmichael time, is when I went to like counseling therapy, and is when the therapist lady told me that, hey, what you've been through is trauma. I was like, oh, really? I had no idea. But to me, what helped was meditation, because I had to go back and heal a little girl. I had to go back and be with her. I had to go back and like be kind and compassionate to her. It was like I describe it as healing your inner child is like holding a little baby tenderly with care and passion and just being there for this little girl that just being for her, being for that little child, holding her tenderly. And just for me was just grieving because I didn't get to grieve my father's death until later on in life. But it is, you got to feel those feelings because what I didn't know is I suppressed all those emotions down and anger kept popping up to me, right? I didn't know that this anger was, from something like when I was 7 years old. So when I think about like the healing the inner child, what was your process of healing your inner child? You said you did art therapy, you did art, but what else did you do that helped you uh heal the little inner child?
Oh wow. Um, and just like you, a lot of meditation
Yes.
and a lot of holding space for my anger. Um,
Yes.
that's I always thought or society thinks or we're told that it's bad, right? Having anger, having rage,
Yes.
that is no good and all this stuff. But that's something that art really helps me with is learning how to express that in a healthy and conducive way. Because I remember one time I blew up at my mental health clinic one time, and one of my counselors pulled me to the side and was like, you're always gonna have this anger and rage in you. She goes, now, but the healthy thing to do is, what are you gonna do with it?
Mm.
You're always gonna have it. So what are you gonna do with it? And I don't even remember where this came from. It either had to do with a spirituality class or something, but somewhere along the lines, it might have been from Jordan Peterson actually, where he stated one time, "Why don't you just question it? Ask it what it wants." And I started doing that. It was so funny. Like I'd be meditating, like part of my process. Like all of a sudden, I didn't want to watch TV no more. Rose. I just wanted
Yes.
to be in nature. I wanted just quiet time. It was just so weird. Totally polar opposite of what I always done.
Yeah.
And once I started asking those questions, little by little, it was like my inner child wanted to do these things that it never had the opportunity to do. You know, it wanted a voice to be heard.
Yes.
And I think this is why I gravitate to motivational speaking and all this, because my inner child never had a voice. It was always getting beat. It was always this. And I think what happened with my when I had open heart surgery, my mother told me that between my mothers and the doctors and everybody, they had to help hold me down because I kept ripping the IVs out my arm.
Mm.
So now in hindsight, now it all made sense. Every time my life or anything would get very difficult, my inner child would freeze.
Mm.
It taught
Mhm.
my nervous system how to freeze. So every time my life would get difficult, I would always freeze. My inner child was always frozen and never got to experience what it meant to be brave, what it meant to be challenged, what it meant to experience life without being scared. I never had that.
Yeah.
So that's the job that I noticed, and I had this internal knowing that was like, do whatever do whatever sets your heart on fire. And what I noticed, like I said, was once I surrounded myself with art, once I surrounded myself with expression, with all this stuff, it almost like gave permission for my inner child to do whatever it needed to do, to scream, to
Yes.
literally be like, this ain't fair, and to have his little tantrums and all that. But what I noticed was before I was letting that inner child create these little tantrums that was throwing my life into spirals. So what I did was I started throwing these tantrums onto canvases.
Ooh,
onto writing in my journal, into sculptures, allowing it to have its voice. Like I said, no matter how dark or how ugly it wanted to express itself, I let it do it through journaling, through like I said, through the experience of creating art. Even though it came out dark or ugly or muddy, it didn't have to be perfect, and that's what my child wanted. My inner child, and so now it's like, I always wanted to be a boxer when I was young,
yeah.
and I had nobody. Like, my dad was always in prison, and my mom wasn't around because she had to work or whatever. So I never had nobody to take me to do these things, and so now it's like I found love with fitness, and when I was in rehab, I was like 220 pounds. I've lost like 40, 50 pounds in the process. I'm the healthiest I've ever been at 46 years old. And now it's like I want to compete. I want to do something. I want to go run. I want to do something, and that brings me back to my inner child, right? That's that young kid that never got to be the boxer. That's that. So now I try to do as much as fun things that I can, so my inner child can have its little life.
I love that. And I resonate with that because, through this healing process, right? It's not pretty. It is not pretty. You go through waves of just emotions of roller coaster. But for me was to remember to feel whatever's coming up, to not stuff your emotions down. And I love that in the healing process, for me was, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of tantrum and screaming. And what led me to have an avenue for that was breath work.
Mm.
Meditation was releasing the cryingness and the emotion, but the breath work dug in deeper where I was able to release the anger, right? I was so mad. Like I had like an adult tantrum in this breath work. I'm screaming, I'm pounding my fist, like it was a safe place for me to let healthy anger and rage out. It was just, there's something about the energy of you just screaming to the top of your lungs, just being in rage, and after the rage and the anger, what was underneath was sadness, deep sadness. After, being in rage and crying, I just felt into this like little ball of like little Rose she was deeply saddened. And just to be with her and just to feel her in that moment of grieve, because I didn't grieve. Because I think in life we're always grieving something. But it's just so beautiful when you're able to just release these emotions in a healthy way. And then it comes back to me now of wanting, fitness is what, I love it. It's like a lifestyle now, fitness, and doing fun things. Like, to me, fun is like, oh, let's go on a hike. Let's, just do something challenging, but I don't know. It's just, I'm all about just like a little challenge and nature. I'm down.
Right, right. No, yes, that's awesome. That's exactly the experience that I'm going with. And yeah, nature, like I said, just being in nature allowed me to be able to scream, like you said, like have that somatic release. I
Yes.
see how you're into that somatic release, and sometimes I feel like that's what's happening to us in the mental health thing, is we're having this big somatic release, but we don't know what's happening to us, right? We go to these mental health places and these doctors, and they give us all these meds, and they tell us that we're broken, or that we're sick, or we have these diseases. But a lot of the times I really feel that is just our nervous system trying to get back in order, but we're not letting it because we don't know what's happening. So you know what I mean? Especially for us guys, like for me, like I noticed when I was doing my therapy at first, it would be hard for me to cry. I would
Yeah.
start talking and sharing, and then I would cry, like wanting to start crying, and then I would cut it off.
Why is
And
that?
and, and
Why
that's
is why
that's
is
something
why? Yeah, I noticed that a
I
lot of men.
really think. I really think it has to do with us being men, how we're told as we're young. I remember my dad would always tell me, boys don't cry, men don't cry, blah
Mm.
blah blah. Like you don't talk about your problems. Not only that, just culture. The Mexican culture is very macho, is very this and that. So you don't talk about your problems, you don't talk about your issues. You make light of them, or you drink them away. You know what I mean? That's ingrained in our culture, and I think this is why a lot of us men, if you do your research, Rose, the majority of people that commit suicide in this country are men.
Yeah.
Are men, is because we don't know how to express our feelings. We don't know how to have those safe environments to where we do allow ourselves to heal, right? Where we do cry. It's shamed upon in our culture as men to cry, or we get embarrassed, or we think that it's not manly enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I lost my brother-in-law last year to suicide. So that was,
Sorry to hear that. I'm
yeah,
so sorry to
yeah.
hear that.
It's tough. It's tough. So with the knowledge that you have and the healing that you have, what are some steps for men to take? Like if they're in a transition where like they want to make a change, but they don't know how, like what tips would you give these men out here that are wanting a better life, wanting to change, wanting to be better?
Oh man, that's a great question. I'd say number one is be intentional. I love the way you started this meeting, with intention. And for me, the number one choice that I made in rehab that I remember was I decided that I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. So first things first, decide: are you going to be a victim, or are you going to choose victory? Second is believe. I don't care if it's God, universe, um, anything that's greater than you. Believe in a power, a source, a force, an energy. I don't care what you call it, but believe in something that's greater than you, that loves you more than your mother. That's something that one of my mentors, David Meltzer, says all the time. There's a force, there's a source that loves you more than your mother. Um, and number three, fall in love with learning. I There's this thing called neuroplasticity. We have the ability to regrow new brain cells until the day we die. So there's no excuse. I know for some of us it might be challenging, it might be harder, but if you're willing and you're open-minded to learn new concepts, but most importantly apply these new concepts, sky's the limit. Number four, man, exercise, exercise, exercise. Just movement, nutrition, all these things are going to help facilitate that neuroplasticity, our heart, our brain's ability to rewire itself. The more healthier we eat, the more exercise that we do, we facilitate that process.
Mm, I love that. I love that. And so one last thing. What actually two more things, sorry. What would you, if you can go back in time, what would you say to your inner child? What if you had a message for your inner child? What would you say?
Do not give up.
Mm,
Do not give up. Do not give up. Um, that's the I actually got that tattooed after my brother passed away, and it's funny because it's just a reoccurring theme that pops up, and to me, that's like a little reminder that my brother tells me every now and then. I have little creative tricks like that, um, and I really think that our loved ones never really go away, because energy cannot be made, or it cannot be destroyed, right? It can only
yes.
be transmuted. So
Yes.
I really think that our loved ones, if we truly ask and set that intention, they send us little messages and little messengers. And that's one that my brother always tells me is, don't give up. Never give up.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. And so, okay, anything else that you want to leave with for the people listening here?
Oh yes, yes, yes. Um, whatever you go for, just know that you're worthy. No matter how dark your life is, no matter how much pain you're going through, you're worthy of healing. You're worthy of abundance. You're worthy of healthy relationships. You're worthy of healing. That's my number one word. That's something I learned from Evan, and my one word is worthy. And I try to tell everybody, like I said, in the rehab that I work in, a lot of people are coming straight from prison. A lot of them are, some of them are 60 years old, so their whole life has been very, very violent. But I always tell them that you're still worthy. You're still worthy. It's never too late, you know. So that's my going away message: is you're worthy.
Oh, that's beautiful. You are worthy of everything. You are worthy. Yes. And so, how can people work with you, and how can they find you?
Yes, mainly right now I'm mostly on Instagram. I also have a LinkedIn, but yeah, or you can shoot me email at frank via worthy at gmail.com, and I'm just looking to spread that message, you know.
Oh, it's Frank, you are amazing. Your story was like, it blew my mind. Like what you've been through. Like it all started in the womb, of the trauma. Like people don't understand that sometimes the trauma is you in the womb of your mother getting beat in the womb. Like it starts from there because the nervous system, right? And
Yes.
we're regulating with our mothers all we're co-regulating with our mothers all the time. And just
Yes.
your
Yes.
upbringing of your dad was in a cartel, then your brother was doing the Russian roulette, and then oh my gosh, like and here you are now, Frank, doing the service that helped you. And now you're giving back to us. And you are doing an amazing thing on this planet, on this earth. And this is what we all need is healing. Like we are worthy. I love that. You are worthy of just you becoming
Yes.
yourself. You're worthy of everything. You deserve love. You are loved. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Frank, for joining me today. It was an honor to speak with you, and your story is going to be very healing to others.
Thank you so much. And one thing I always like to tell everybody, you know, game recognizes game. Your story is impactful. It's beautiful, and there are no accidents. Just think of everything we had to go through, Rose, just for us to be here right now. Me and you just sharing this time, this moment in time. There are no accidents, and thank you for being you, and thank you for your podcast, because it's also going to transform lives.
Yes, yes, thank you. Oh, one thing that I was thinking about was too was that to me, after going through my journey of like my father getting shot and killed, like he left he left me a gift. He left each and every one of my family members a gift, but it's for them to find it. For me, I found my gift from my dad, and it was forgiveness. Is
Oh wow!
huge. And now that I look back at it, it's like, okay, I feel like before we came on this planet, we choose how we want to go.
Mm,
I see my dad as for him choosing to go this way because there's lessons and things that he is teaching me and my family and anybody that was involved. Like there's teachings and everything if we're are open to seeing it. So I'm like, okay, so this is, I don't know. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I don't know, but this is just a speculation of mine. Like, okay, he choose, like everybody came here, and I think we all choose how we go. And
I,
this,
I I
and this,
truly believe that.
yeah,
I truly believe that. And not only how we go, but I also believe, Rose, that we choose our parents, we
yes,
choose every circumstance, and that's just in order for our soul to grow. Because if you do your research, I think they said 90 to 95% of our DNA don't even belong to us. It belongs to like gut bacteria and viruses and all this stuff that's in this body of ours. And we think we're this body, but I truly think we're much more than that, you know.
yes, I love that. Well, thank you, Franks. Thank you for your time. And you guys, this is Frank, and I'll put the info on the YouTube link where to find him. And thank you so much, Frank.
Thank you so much. And keep smiling, Rose. Keep doing your thing. And hope we'll do this again. Have a
Yes.
beautiful day.
Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Bye.